Israel just struck the heart of Tehran. Not a missile factory, not a launch site, not a radar station buried in the mountains. The building Israel destroyed on March 23rd was something different, something that reveals, with unusual clarity, what this war is actually about. And what was inside that building is the part nobody is explaining. Hold 3 questions. 1. The IDF says the IRGC headquarters was used to synchronize regional units responsible for enforcing regime order and internal security. Why would Israel, in a war focused on missiles and nuclear sites, spend 100 bombs on a building that coordinates internal police functions? What does it know about Iran's domestic situation that it isn't saying out loud? 2. In the same overnight wave, Israel struck 2 IRGC intelligence headquarters, an intelligence ministry headquarters, an IRGC air defense headquarters, a naval cruise missile production site, and 50 plus additional targets. Over 100 precision bombs. 1 operational cycle. What exactly were they trying to collapse, and did it work? 3. The same night Israel hit that headquarters, Iranian citizens were filming Basij checkpoints and posting the locations on social media, actively guiding Israeli targeting. One phrase trending online translated to, "Every drone that hits a Basij checkpoint gladdens the souls of those killed during the January crackdowns." The enemy of the IRGC was helping destroy it from inside. How does a military campaign become a popular one inside the country being bombed? The answer to all 3 lives inside what was in that building. To understand what Israel destroyed, you need 1 institution, 1 number, and 1 date. The institution is the Basij. Most people in the West hear that word and picture a militia. The reality is more precise. Approximately 90,000 active members, a reserve network extending into millions, embedded into every province, city, district, university, and mosque in Iran. Not a border force, an internal occupation force, answering directly to the IRGC, which answers to the supreme leader. The number is 32,000, estimated Iranians killed by mid-January 2026, according to sources inside Iran speaking to Euronews, during protests that began in December when hyperinflation drove shopkeepers into the streets and spread into a nationwide uprising. The Basij carried out the bulk of the killings. The date is January 2026, 6 weeks before this war began. The protests were still burning, internet blackouts in place, thousands imprisoned, Basij units day and night on Tehran's streets, according to Iran's own police chief. The war on February 28th did not create this internal fracture. It dropped bombs onto a fracture that was already there. That is the context. That is why what happened next changed everything about how you read the IRGC strike. Start with the smallest thing. On March 13th, 10 days before the headquarters strike, Israel began targeting Basij checkpoints, individual roadblocks, single-armed positions on Tehran street corners. Drone footage showed precision strikes on ordinary intersections. Nothing dramatic looking. But on Iranian social media, something unexpected was happening simultaneously. Ordinary Iranians, people who had watched neighbors die during the January crackdowns, were filming the checkpoint locations and posting them, location pins, street-level footage, real-time targeting data, delivered voluntarily by the population the Basij had been sent to suppress. IRGC-affiliated media confirmed drone strikes were hitting checkpoints since Wednesday night, killing and wounding a number of Basij members. One phrase spread online: "Every strike on a Basij position gladdens the souls of those killed in January." From Euronews. Social media posts showed Basij and security forces members hiding under a bridge in Tehran to avoid Israeli detection and strikes from the air. The most feared paramilitary force in the Middle East was hiding under a bridge. That is the invisible escalation, not from bombs to bigger bombs, from external military pressure to internal civilian collaboration, a combination that no modern air campaign has ever achieved. The IRGC headquarters strike on March 23rd was its logical endpoint. Here is what Israel says it destroyed on March 23rd in Tehran alone. The IRGC's main security headquarters, the nerve center for synchronizing Basij units across all 23 of Tehran's regional bases and all 30 provincial commands. 2 IRGC Intelligence headquarters, the Intelligence Ministry headquarters, an IRGC air defense headquarters, an IRGC ground forces headquarters, weapons storage sites, a naval cruise missile production facility, additional sites related to electronics, ballistic missiles, and warheads, over 100 guided bombs, dozens of IAF aircraft, one night. The main security headquarters, the IDF said, played a central role in consolidating coordination among various IRGC units and served as the operational hub for Basij sectors, responsible for suppressing domestic protests. Its function: knowing where protests form, which units to deploy, how many to arrest, where to route prisoners, when to cut internet. But that wasn't the real issue, because to understand why that building mattered more than the cruise missile factory struck in the same wave, you have to understand what the IRGC's internal control function actually consists of. and why a building managing police coordination could be a higher priority target than a weapons depot. The real shift was somewhere else entirely. Reuters described the IRGC in 2026 as a state within a state. That phrase is not hyperbole. The IRGC controls Iran's oil and gas sectors, runs construction companies, manages telecommunications infrastructure, operates Bank Sepa, fields a missile force, runs the nuclear program's military research, commands the Quds Force coordinating proxies across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, and through the Basij, controls the physical streets of every Iranian city. The Critical Threats Project documented the structure in detail. 23 Basij regional bases in Tehran alone, under the Mohammed Rasul Ola Provincial Unit, reporting to the IRGC Ground Forces Sarala headquarters, the exact institutional chain running through the building Israel destroyed. Alongside those bases, Imam Ali battalions, Basij units, trained and equipped to suppress urban protests and conduct anti-riot operations. These are not soldiers. They are the people who show up when someone holds up a sign. That's when the balance shifted. Because when Israel struck the main security headquarters, it wasn't degrading a military function. It was degrading the mechanism by which 90 million people are kept from the streets. Israel's strategy had been explicit for days before March 23rd. The IDF released a Farsi-language video message directed at mothers of besieged forces. Only they can save their sons by convincing them to lay down their arms. Netanyahu said Israel is delivering crushing blows to the Revolutionary Guards and the Basij, and we have only just begun. He addressed the Iranian people. In the coming days, we will create the conditions for you to grasp your destiny. The Jerusalem Post reported that 2 early coordination strikes had hit the Interior Ministry headquarters, which coordinated IRGC and Basij efforts against protesters nationwide, and the Tharala headquarters, coordinating those efforts within Tehran. The March 23rd main security headquarters strike was the peak of this sequence. The IDF described it as part of the current operational phase aimed at further degrading core Iranian terror regime systems and security capabilities. Not military capabilities, security capabilities. John Alterman at CSIS identified the deeper intent. Israel appears to want a much deeper transformation of the Iranian system, whether that means durable incapacitation or some form of regime destabilization. This changed everything. Israel is fighting 2 wars simultaneously, one against Iran's missiles, one against Iran's ability to suppress its own people. But before we get to whether that second war, the one aimed at dismantling the internal control apparatus, is working, and why one piece of evidence from the streets of Tehran may be more significant than anything Israel has officially reported, we need to understand what Iran has lost so far. Because the answer is not what any official briefing is telling you. Stay with this. The Basij force is in a position no analyst anticipated when this war began. Before February 28th, its checkpoints covered every major district in Tehran. Its commanders had direct lines to IRGC provincial units. Its intelligence arm could deploy lethal force within minutes. In January, it killed an estimated 32,000 protesters. Today, its members are hiding under bridges. Al Jazeera documented social media posts showing Basij members across Iran receiving threatening telegram messages. You are completely under our surveillance. We know what crimes you committed against the Iranian people. The ISW reported that at least 9 of the 23 Basij regional bases in Tehran had been struck as of March 6th, before the main headquarters strike. The civilian collaboration compounds this. Iranian citizens filming checkpoint locations are not marginal. Euronews Persian service characterized it as widespread and driven by genuine hatred of the Basij following January's massacres, people using an external military as a tool to target the force that killed their neighbors. Without warning, the IRGC's domestic control function began collapsing from 2 directions simultaneously. The official Iranian narrative, the war has strengthened national unity. State television shows Basij forces in mosque rallies, weapons raised. Police Chief Radan confirmed day and night patrols. Pezeshkian called retaliation Iran's duty and legitimate right. Mojtaba Khamenei approved a new Security Council head. Official picture, a regime in control responding from strength. In reality, Basij members hiding under bridges, citizens posting checkpoint locations for drones, internet blackout past 5:04 hours, not confidence, but fear. Prisoners reportedly shot during food shortages in Chabahar prison. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, told the Senate, Iran appears to be intact, but largely degraded. Intact on the surface, degraded underneath. That assessment applies with particular force to the Basij. The institution still exists. Its headquarters does not, but there is a third dimension to what was inside that building. One that connects the internal security function to the external military campaign in a way that no official statement has made explicit. The real shift was not just what the building coordinated, it is what the building knew. The Times of Israel published one headline that reframes the entire campaign. Iran built a vast camera network to control dissent. Israel turned it into a targeting tool. Cyber surveillance emerges as key weapon of war after Israel used Tehran's street cameras to assassinate Khamenei. The surveillance architecture the IRGC built to monitor citizens, track protesters, and feed intelligence into Basij suppression units was accessed and turned against its own operators. The main security headquarters, struck on March 23rd, sat at the center of this architecture. Its function: synchronize regional units, conduct situational assessments, process data from 23 Basij bases and Tehran's street camera network. When Israel destroyed it, it destroyed the node through which Iran's internal surveillance data flowed, the building that translated street-level information into suppression orders. That is not a military headquarters. That is the nervous system of the regime's domestic control. For Israel, the headquarters was a target multiplier, one building synchronizing 23 bases and all 31 provincial commands. For the IRGC, the loss is coordination. The units still exist, but the architecture that told them where to be and when is gone. For ordinary Iranians, it is the building that processed their locations, tracked their faces, and directed the forces that killed 32,000 of their neighbors. For the regime, the danger is not the rubble. It is what fills the vacuum. This wasn't just a military strike. 4 layers shifted in one night. Militarily, 100-plus bombs, 8-plus institutional targets, cruise missile production, air defense, ballistic missile storage. CENTCOM's commander confirmed Iranian capabilities are declining. Economically, Bank SEPA, which holds armed forces accounts, was struck the same week. The IRGC declared U.S. and Israeli banking interests across the region as legitimate targets. The financial infrastructure of the IRGC is now inside the strike package. Politically, Netanyahu addressed the Iranian people from the debris. The Ayatollahs and their henchmen are on the run. In the coming days, we will create the conditions for you to grasp your destiny. That is not military language. It is a message to a population that already knows what it means. Strategically, Jason Campbell at the Middle East Institute described a phase of incrementalism, each side escalating just enough to one-up the other. The headquarters strike does not resolve the war. It removes one instrument the regime would need to survive a post-war internal reckoning. That is a different kind of damage than anything a missile site can inflict. During the 2025-2026 protest movement, demonstrators in Sadat Abad chanted, "Death to the IRGC and Basij." In Chitgar, "Long live the Shah." On campuses, "Death to Khamenei." Coordinated, widespread, sustained through internet blackout and mass arrests. The IRGC headquarters, destroyed on March 23rd, was the mechanism that crushed those chants. Every protest location reported, every organizer identified, every arrest coordinated through that building. The resistance units of the National Council of Resistance of Iran documented 15 simultaneous attacks on IRGC and Basij bases across 12 Iranian cities in the days after the strike. Not Israeli drones, Iranians with Molotov cocktails, internally coordinated, geographically distributed, aimed at the same infrastructure Israel hit from the air. This campaign is not operating in a vacuum. It is operating in a country where millions have been waiting for external pressure to coincide with what they have been building from inside. Here is what March 23rd decided, and what it left undecided. It decided that the IRGC's central coordination architecture for internal security no longer functions. The building that synchronized 23 Basij bases, directed protest suppression, and processed surveillance data is rubble. That function does not rebuild overnight. What it left undecided: whether the Iranian population will move, whether the conditions Netanyahu promised to create will materialize, or whether the regime will find ways to suppress without coordination, using the same decentralized logic that keeps its missiles flying after 8,000 strikes. The Basij members hiding under bridges are demoralized. The coordination headquarters is destroyed. Citizens are filming checkpoints and posting them, and yet Iran fired ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv on March 24th. State television ran rally footage. The new supreme leader approved a new Security Council head. Unexpectedly, the most important variable may not be what Israel destroys next. It may be what 90 million Iranians, cut off from the internet, living under checkpoints now hiding under bridges, decide to do with the space those strikes have opened. Nobody in Washington or Tel Aviv has publicly said what happens if they do nothing, and nobody in Tehran has publicly said what happens if they do.